welcome to another episode of the Revel Flow Podcast. I'm your host, Flo, and we're back after a long hiatus. We'll kind of call this the start of season 3. And to kick off the new season, I've invited one of my friends to join us in today's conversation. He's full of surprises, seems to know just about everyone on the planet, a true Enneagram 9, and probably the biggest Michael Jordan fan you'll ever know. I'm pretty sure I got that right. Okay, so welcome to the show, Ryan Breth. What's up?
What's up? Quite the intro. Thank you. You already know this that I had to correct already, but I mean, I'm not a Michael Jordan fan, but LeBron James is the GOAT in my opinion. So I'm a big LeBron James fan.
Yeah. And on that note, thus concludes the podcast episode. My basis for that whole argument is
Yeah.
purely on the Space Jam quality. That's literally it for me.
So the initial original Space Jam compared to the new one?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's not even close, actually. The first one's way better. Yeah, I think that was just it was the first of its kind. You didn't see anything like that with like Looney Tunes and a real character and then the NBA players. Like it was just such a unique movie of its day. And then something new it was just hard. It just wasn't the same.
It was worth
That would be the only thing Michael Jordan has on LeBron.
Okay, that's your only, yeah, I can.
Other than 6 championships or 7, like he has. 22 years in the league, man. He's not slowing down.
No. And I really don't know a ton about all of like the professional stats and all that stuff, but just purely from what you talk about him.
All the things I post on Instagram.
I'm like, oh, he's still playing. That's good.
Yeah. But anyways, I feel like I had to clear that up. But thanks for having me, Lauren. I really appreciate it. Thanks for having me, Flo.
Oh, you're either one. Yeah.
It's an honor to be here.
Of course. I wanted to have you on because I think your story is really interesting, and I feel like people will be able to grab some sage wisdom from kind of your journey of how you've decided to navigate life. I think it's interesting to see all the different ways that people process their own challenges or just like goals in life. Like I'd mentioned earlier, you started as a physical therapist and now you're a campus pastor, which is not the normal career path for a physical therapist. But
yeah, you don't really think like physical therapy school, physical therapist assistant was what I was and am still technically, and then pastor. It's just not really like the direction that one would think, oh yeah, this is probably what I'll do next,
Yeah.
But not a surprise to me just because of how I grew up and my heart and passion for the local church. But to some people like, wait, that's a pretty big change. So yeah, I can obviously share. Executive pastor actually is my new title as of like a year ago.
Yes. Well, congrats.
Yeah, thanks.
What made you decide to be a physical therapist in the first place?
While I was doing physical therapy as a career, I was very, very involved in the church at all times. And so I loved volunteering. Everything from painting a door to serving someone. I started in the band. So in fact, the church that I serve at now, that I work at now, I came in as a volunteer. They asked if I could play drums as a fill-in, and I did. And then my wife and I just started to come to the church regularly. I was on the stage singing and playing drums, but I would be looking out into the crowd and through the crowd into the doors of the lobby. And there was something in me that was like, are these people feeling welcome, like here at the church? Like, is there anyone that's greeting them and saying hi and giving a high five or a hug or whatever? And the more I dug and asked questions like that, they said, actually, we really don't have anyone leading that area. And it's a little bit of a liability and a weakness at our church currently. So I started to serve there. And I, at one point I was kind of on stage, then I was in the lobby and then back and forth and back and forth. And then our pastor, his name's Greg, who has been on the podcast. I listened to that podcast. It was great. He asked if I would ever consider leaving my job in physical therapy. And it was, I'll never forget, I had a good friend who was like, hey, I know you're in physical therapy school and you're going to do that or whatever, but you're going to be a pastor someday, right? And I'll never forget things like that throughout time. And even like I say, in my background, like grew up in the church, loved it, had a heart for it, saw great people serving the church everywhere I went, had good experiences in church, like good pastors, not perfect people, but good people that cared about others and showed the love of Jesus. So that, and then just throughout time, people are like, man, like inviting me to be a part of meetings and things like that. So it started to just become, I remember I was treating patients and I started to think a little bit more about stuff going on at the church. And I was thinking about, I mean, I wasn't letting people fall or anything crazy like that. Like
Imagine.
I would just start to, man, like I kind of want to be at the church. And then it was kind of the right thing at the right time. And it worked with our family. And it was a risk. It was for sure a risk going to a really steady, stable job, something I went to school for, to ministry. But it was just clear, so clear, and it still is that this is really, I think without doing physical therapy, it was cool because I got to help people in a physical way there, and I got to serve people in that way. But this was really where I feel like God has me. But without doing that, I don't know that I would have been had the experience and the people. When you're in physical therapy, you work with people all day, and when you're in ministry, you work with people all day. And so I feel like I learned a lot, I saw a lot that helped me prepare for this. So that's a little bit about how it all came together.
Yeah, it seems like that job does have a ton of transferable skills because, like you
Yeah.
said, you're eye to eye with people all day, like problem solving and trying to figure out what's going to benefit them, what's going to help with their ailments. And you're planning like a program for them to be successful and find physical healing. And so many parallels with what you're doing right now. You could feel the calling of being out in the guest experience area of welcoming people in because you've seen that need and you've seen it met well and how it could be done really well. And so you brought that perspective into things change all the time, but having someone who has been in that, your grandmother, who's been serving in that for 60 years, you can see like things change, but also people don't really change. Like their core needs don't change. And so, there's always that core need of being in community. And I also wanted to highlight that you had, in different times of your life, you had multiple people tell you and see something in you that you knew, yeah, maybe I might enjoy that, but they could see that calling and like call out like you're gifted in this area. And I would echo that, honestly. Me and Elijah, who's also been on the podcast, my husband,
Oh
he,
yeah.
we've talked about like you're one of the main reasons that we feel so included in the church and feel like a part of the church. You can tell things in hindsight, of course, but having like heard even I didn't know your origin story, right? But
Yeah. Yeah.
and having heard that process, it makes so much sense where you ended up. And you did also mention there was just like a short period of time where church kind of felt like boring. And I wanted to kind of ask about that because that's where some people decide to lay it down and walk away. But I know like your family kept you involved in church as well. But what kept you going past that boredom feeling?
Yeah, that's a great question, and not even something I've thought about. So when that happened, it was probably somewhere between third and sixth grade. And my daughter's in third grade. She just turned 9 yesterday. Shout out to my daughter. There's like a third through sixth grade, like you start to think like you're a little too cool. Like also, but if you don't have friends or you don't feel a sense of belonging to somewhere, it's really hard to just walk in. When you're little, you just kind of go just because your parents tell you go, and like you just make friends easily. But now you start to have like a little bit of an increased self-awareness and like, do these people like me and do I feel included? And I don't really know what it was. Also, things are like boring to you. It's like, oh, this is boring. Like we're gonna watch this video or read this thing in class, and so I just didn't want to go to Sunday school. I just remember I'll never forget like third through probably sixth grade. But part of the thing that got me, I think it was like in fifth or sixth grade, there was this girl at the church who I got to know, and we were exchanging notes. We became, boyfriend girl. That was probably sixth and seventh grade. So that was, I would say, to be honest with you, that was one of the things that like lured me back into. But mainly outside, it was what you said. It was really people seeing something in me. I was in seventh grade when our youth pastor said he saw leadership in me, and I was in sixth or seventh grade. No, maybe eighth grade actually when I started playing drums. So I got an interest to play drums, and I'm like, I just want to be good enough to play in church. So it really was the involvement piece and people asking me to be included. And I've never really drawn that conclusion or connected that dot until literally right now. And I appreciate what you said about you and Elijah. I have a huge heart to help people feel included and welcome. And so thinking back to that time where people like gave me an opportunity and gave me a spot and saw something in me, And yeah, just remembered things about me and cared about me and truly not for what I could do for the church, but just who I was. Like, yeah, that meant a lot in that time. And I don't even know if I've really thought about that. Yeah, it was somewhere between fourth and sixth grade. I was like, I remember my parents would come in and like, it's time to go to church. I'm like, no, I'm not going to church. I'm sick. I want to stay home. And then I was totally opposite. Got into the youth group and loved it. Ever since then, been really involved in the church. We have a core value at one church called involvement. And
Mhm.
what we say is the tagline is belong and contribute. And there is something to me about the combination of those two things that is really important. That you want to have a sense of belonging in an environment or a community that you're a part of. But to just belong is not all you need. I mean, there's something about contributing and making a difference in that community, whatever it is, if that's your workplace or your church or your family, to belong in your family. I mean, that's kind of important, but you also want to contribute to the needs of the family. And so I would say involvement is what kind of lured me back in.
It makes a lot of sense. You can only consume stuff for so long before you almost, it's kind of the metaphor of like if you eat too much, even if it's like a really good thing, you'll get sick. If you
Yeah.
don't exercise it out, that's where you feel, like you said, the buy-in, the value. And I think that's just how humans are wired, and we forget sometimes that we feel good when we are thinking of others.
Mhm.
It's a lot right now of like me and mine, and I got to get mine, and I got to make sure that I'm taken care of, which there's a good balance to that. It's obviously good to be healthy, so you can pour out as a healthy individual, but part of being healthy is also pouring out to others. It's a both and. So it's a
Yeah.
yeah, a really healthy perspective to have. Um, I forgot my train of thought after that.
Forgiven, not forgotten.
Thank you, Pastor. This is my confessional. Thank you, brethren. When you first became pastor or campus pastor, I would call you Brother Ryan or Brethren.
Yeah, yeah. Brethren, reverend. People,
Reverend, that was a big one.
people call me all kinds of weird things. It's
Bishop Breth.
Yeah, it's kind of a daunting thing, to be honest with you, because like I told you, I had like people that I really respected and great pastors in my life, and some that didn't have the title of pastor, but I would consider them pastor. And when I remember I started in a role called guest experience director. That was my first role here. And I've had different roles throughout the time and now serve as our executive pastor. But one of my roles that you mentioned earlier was campus pastor. And I remember when Anthony was his name, who was here at the church at the time. He was like, "Hey, we'd like you to consider being our campus pastor at the Gahanna campus." I was like, "Did you say pastor?" And I have, I grew up in church my whole life. I went to a Christian school, Christian college, so I have some informal theological training. But it was like one of those things that it was like, wait, I don't have a pastoral degree. I don't. I would say I have a pastor's heart, and I've had to have people encourage me in that way because it was a daunting thing. I'm like, man, I want to carry the weight of this responsibly
Mhm.
because I've seen it modeled well. Not perfect, but well in
Yeah.
general. Yeah. So even when people still say that, like, I mean, some people call me Pastor Ryan. That's like weird. I'm like, you just call me Ryan. I'm just a friend. So
Or the
yeah.
prince. That's what my
You're
daughter
the prince. Yeah. Your daughter calls me the prince.
calls.
That means a lot. Tell that story. You should.
She loves that. So one day I think you and Dustin did a wedding, um,
Yeah.
and you came to church in suits. And Loretta, my daughter, comes up to me. She goes, "Mommy, a real life prince is here." And I was like, "Wow, you should go say hi." And that was probably like 2 or 3 years ago. And ever since you were the prince. I don't know if
Yeah.
it was Orion Breth, but she knows the prince.
No, I don't, yeah, she probably has no clue what my name is. Yeah, yeah, she's adorable. You have a great daughter and great family, but she has a piece of my heart. And she still walks up to me and is excited to see me and still calls me Prince. So, it's like it's nice to be liked.
Yeah, be somebody to someone is nice for
Yeah,
sure.
that's right.
And
Yep.
back to like the pastor thought. So I grew up as a pastor's kid and kind of also have that understanding of the
Hmm.
responsibility and the weight of the term pastor because it comes with, they come in, it just feels like a very high responsibility and also potential to be like, I can't mess up. Or
Hmm.
because, as a leader, you are held to a higher accountability, right? Did
Yeah.
you feel tension with that? Did you feel in deciding to say yes to it? Was there any kind of internal struggle other than just like, oh, I don't feel qualified, which you are, of course, but did you feel any kind of like, wow, if I've got to mind my P's and Q's and all of that? Was there any kind of tension there?
Yeah, I think there has been and there still is. I mean, I think there's because I take it seriously. and know that I'm not perfect. This might be sharing like going too deep, but when I was younger, I have not, my brother won't watch this either or listen to this either. So I think it's okay to share this. He was a little bit more the trouble guy. So he's my half brother. He's 11 years older than me. And he got into a lot of trouble. And when I was growing up, for whatever reason, I didn't get in as much trouble. And so my brother and other people of family would call me the golden child. I don't think that's because have blonde hair. I think for the most part, like I didn't get in a lot of trouble. But when I was labeled as that, it felt like I couldn't do wrong. And if I did do wrong, couldn't tell anybody because I'm not, and I've been put on this pedestal in a sense.
Mhm.
So when I actually messed up in my life and made mistakes in my life, there was a period of my life where I really was. I was in sin and I was struggling in some different areas of my life and made some bad decisions. And I drew some connections to that. I was so scared to tell somebody, hey, I'm actually going through something, or I'm struggling with this, or because I was trying to maintain this like status. So what I've learned throughout that time is, of course, we know in scripture it tells us to confess your sins. He's faithful and just to forgive you of your sins. What I learned at that time is another scripture. I'm going to blank on the actual reference. I think it's in Galatians. No, I don't think it's in Galatians. I'm not sure. It says, confess your sins one to another and pray for one another so you may be healed.
Yeah.
And so I personally found when I was struggling with things, when I could share it with someone and say, hey, you got to pray for me on this. You got to help me on this. You got to help me stay accountable to this. That's when I found true healing in my life. And so from then and since then, I've just tried to be an open book. I've tried to have accountability in my life in different areas of my life, boundaries in my life in different areas of my life, and set myself up for success with good communication and good people around me to support me and ask good questions and care for me. And how are you doing really? Because the danger is, okay, I'm pastor, so if I mess up, I can't tell anybody,
Right. Yeah.
or I'm golden child, or I'm, in leadership. So what if I'm having a hard day? I'm a bad day. Do I just, so I've just learned to be a little bit more vulnerable. Not a little bit more vulnerable. People close to me. You can ask some great questions because I feel like I'm learning things about myself and connecting the dots. And I'm like, yeah, I always feel like life is just a race to self-awareness, like just
You're right.
about yourself. And so yes, I take it seriously, but I feel like I've done. Our pastor says the hardest person you'll lead is yourself, and then I didn't do that for years, and I've worked really hard in the last probably 5 to 10 years on doing that better.
And I think where leaders, even people who aren't in the church, they just have a lot of responsibility over a group of people. They feel kind of like you said, they have to maintain an image to make sure that they have respect of people still and they have the trust of people. But I've found, and it sounds like what you're doing, it's people actually trust you more when you own up to something. And it doesn't mean you tell everybody your business because that's not everyone's business and that's like a bad boundary. But the
Yeah,
people you're accountable to, like you mentioned, like people who are close to you and care about you and can speak into your life, I think people respect and trust you way more than if they think you've made every correct decision and then 10 years down the line they find out all this dirt, you know?
yeah, yeah, for sure. So I got advice from my father-in-law, and he said, I don't know if he said it quite like this, but the gist of what he was saying is, how people say, don't sweat the small stuff, or
Mhm.
like whatever. He goes, sweat the small stuff. He goes, it's the little things that if you don't take care of them, they'll grow larger and larger and larger. So, unfortunately, we've seen pastors for years, have embezzlement or moral issues or infidelity or, all these different things. But it starts with something, it starts with something small. And so I think the more and it doesn't leave pastors out of it or people in leadership, like any of us, like if there's small things that you need to, see a counselor or tell somebody, or hey, I'm struggling with this area, or I have anxiety, or I keep thinking about this and I can't stop thinking, whatever it is. I just think you need people in your life. Like you just need people in your life that you can trust and tell someone. And so essentially what he was saying is if you don't like have the little fights, like, hey, I kind of expected you to cook dinner and I expected you to take care of the lawn. I thought you were gonna make the bed every morning. Like if you don't talk about that stuff, it's gonna grow and fester into larger and bigger conversations. And of course there's a root to the issue probably, but like if you don't sweat the small stuff, you don't talk the little stuff, it's gonna grow in bitterness and things. And There's scripture that even says that when temptation gives birth to sin, and then sin, when fully grown, leads to death. And
Yeah.
so I think if that where it starts is important, and you gotta, yeah, you just need people to talk to.
I think a lot of what people put out there is the final draft of their life or their day or their sermon or something they've been planning, but people don't always see like the small choices they had to make to get there. And so just highlighting how important like watching your pennies or watch sweating the small stuff, exactly what you're saying. Like the ordinary is what brings out the extraordinary. The small stuff is what makes the big moments possible and healthy. And you had also talked about like just like in a small moment, you talked about having good boundaries and all this stuff, and having a pastor's heart like you want where you can see where people have need, and it's like a gift to be able to see that, and also having the drive to meet the need. There comes to a point where like you also have to maintain a healthy boundary, and you'd said that you have those boundaries. How, or maybe you're still growing in it some ways too, I'm sure. What would you say for, again, this could be for like any type of leadership role where you see a need, but you also have a family and you also have like your life. How did you develop your boundaries, or what is your current process of developing those?
Oh man, well, anyone listening to this will know that I haven't figured it out. I have not. I've made progress in that in these areas, but by no means have I really nailed it. I knew when I went from physical therapy to the biggest change from going physical therapy, I would say, to ministry, and I was pretty aware of this
Mhm.
because I had been around ministry my whole life. PT, I would go and I'd see my patients. I'd get there. I had a group of patients with a certain amount of minutes that we needed to get with those patients based on their insurance companies. So it made up about an 8-hour day. So I get in there, and our schedule will be flexible. We can make up our own schedule, but you get to see those patients in the day. You went home and you didn't think about those patients or other patients until the next day.
Mhm.
In ministry, I a lot of times like to say that ministry doesn't sleep. Like it just feels like there's always more to do, more people to serve, more problems to solve, more dots to connect, more things to work on, and more conversations to be had, and email here and all that.
Yeah.
And so you do have to really set boundaries. I would say, some of it is just really good communication. So whether you're a leader and a CEO in a high functioning organization, and it's like you're working day and night. I think it's important to make moments matter. So I remember when I took on this job, Lauren and I were like, all right, this is going to be a weird schedule. Some days I'm going to have a late meeting and I won't be home before the kids are in bed. But what with some flexibility comes flexibility for the good and the bad, both. So you just have to work really hard of, okay, is this a work day? Is this not? And what are my boundaries going to be here? And if I am going to take a call on an off day, or if I am going to answer the phone to, I was getting a message late last night, and I was out with my daughter for her birthday from one of our other staff leaders, and there was somebody in our church who was having suicidal ideation.
Mhm.
So she was like, "Hey, have we checked all our boxes? Here's what we're doing. I just want to let you know about it. Do you suggest anything else?" And it was like, that's something that's like pressing. So when I listened to it, I didn't call back because I was with my family. But I sent a quick voice note. I was able to do that in 2 minutes. And
Mhm.
so it's like, sometimes there's going to be pressing, urgent things, especially if it's literally the life of a person
Mhm.
that my family's going to understand. So I think it's good communication. But there's other times where we just went on what I call family retreat. It's the second year we've done it. I took my phone, but I turned my phone off. And I let our staff know, the people I work with closely, like, hey, I am unplugged here on this trip, and I'm going to give everything I have to my family in this time. And so we did board games and stuff. And so we make moments matter. It is a unique job with text messages and emails and calls coming at many hours of the day and the night. So it's a discipline thing, that just turning off the phone or keeping the phone in another room, being really clear with Lauren, my wife, and setting good boundaries. I also got advice one time because you were a pastor's kid, so I'd be curious some of your experience. But I was a little nervous, like, will my kids feel like they don't want to go to church because it's like dad is always there? Well, there'll be this like weird like because they've even said like, and it breaks my, they're like, you're always working, you're always in church. I'm like, well, no, there's a difference because sometimes we go to church together and
Mhm.
sometimes that is at work.
Yeah.
And try to like we go to church together as a family. Of course, I'm working,
Yeah.
but there's also my work and my job. And so I try to even draw a little bit of boundaries between those two things. I want my kids to wake up in the morning. My daughter actually comes with me to church on Sundays at 7 a.m. She
Well,
stays the whole day. She attends a service, like her own kid service, and then she serves the little kiddos for the
mm,
two other services. So right now, she loves church, and I want my kids to wake up and on Sundays, or I want them to be excited to see their friends at church and to know Jesus. And so, yeah, it's a challenge to kind of daily live in that world where you got relationships and work and church, and it's all kind of mixed to have boundaries. But I am working on it. I'm definitely a work in progress, and I've made some progress.
that's good. Progress is really the only thing you can ask for.
Yeah.
It's a big deal. I mean, with someone who like you genuinely care, so I can see it's hard to like turn that off and then realize like, okay, it's actually better for them if I'm healthy and have boundaries and stuff. And yeah, growing up as a pastor's kid, I would say so I'm the youngest of four, and my siblings can probably speak to their own version of this, but I felt like church was a playground. Like I would go, same as what your daughter's doing, like going with you, like that I loved doing that and like going with my dad and stuff. And it was a very positive experience. I don't know, for my other siblings, they might have a different opinion, but at least
Sure.
personally, I felt, and it could have been because I was the fourth and with every kid, you figure it out a little bit more. So maybe that's why I have a good experience. But yeah, it was positive, and I think they balanced. I have had conversations with my dad before where he shared a concern and he asked, did I choose ministry over you too much? Like, do you
Wow.
feel like there was good balance? Which I felt like the fact that he asked that question of all like showed his heart. So yeah, it sounds like as long as you're asking yourselves those questions and being honest with the answers, you're safe. Like you've got your proper guardrails up, you know?
Yeah,
Wow.
that's great. I've asked a very similar question, so kudos to your dad. And that's great to just learn from. But I've asked similar, like we'll come back from a really hard, Easter or whatever. It's like, man, I've been at the church getting prepared for that all week, and a lot of services, and I'll get home and I used to be a little apologetic, like, hey, I'm sorry I was at the church so long, but I love you more than the church. And, daddy loves you more than he loves his job. This is important, but I love you more. And I had someone tell me, that's fine. And like the heart of that is great, but also like you want your kids to know that because of your sacrifice, their sacrifice, like involve them in what's happening. Like say, hey, because daddy was at work all week, 65 people made a decision for Jesus, and you helped do that, and I helped do that, and we're all a part of that as a family. And so the ministry isn't just a me thing, it's our family thing. And we all get to be a part of seeing life change and God doing some miracles and moving people's lives. So I'm really doing a good job of like trying to include the whole family versus sorry, daddy was at work again. Like, no, this is a good thing. This is we're making a difference together. So
And I feel like it also like presents it differently because if you're apologetic, it almost sounds like you're doing something wrong. And to your point, you're not.
yeah.
And it also kind of makes me think about like people who either have church hurt or who are outside looking in and they're almost judgmental of what's going on inside. It's like you don't truly know what's going on unless you're directly involved. And
Mm.
so to take away the mystery of like, hey, come and see. Like that's even something Jesus says, like taste and see that the Lord is good. And like you actually don't know until you're directly involved, like shoulder to shoulder with some of these people. You can only assume. And I think that's like a big issue, not just for church. I think for any misunderstanding, it's a judgment. I saw this on Instagram and it told me all I needed to know when it's really like 1/100th of the story, you know?
Yeah,
So
right,
it's
right.
like, oh, you know everything now. But no, it's like in what you're doing exactly. Invite them in, and then they can actually see like, oh, I see your heart. Oh, I see what you're actually doing.
Mhm.
And yeah, and it also makes me think of it is so easy to be misunderstood in any leadership role because like you could have the purest heart, the best intentions, but someone's gonna be hurt at some
Mm.
capacity. I saw it happen to my dad a ton when I would manage stores. I would be following protocol, doing something up for their benefit, and I would be the bad guy. And I know it's like a dime a dozen, probably, unfortunate. And, there's only so much you can do. Do you have a process for you internally? Like, okay, I was super misunderstood in that moment. Do you kind of like pick at the scab or do you just like power through? How do you navigate that for yourself?
Yeah, man, a great question, and I feel like I feel like I'm learning so much. I've learned more in this role about myself and about people than any other role that I've ever been in, physical therapy, different roles I've had here. So yes, a couple things. So right now my daughter is 9 years old,
Mhm.
and I would say she's getting into the stage of life where she's really finding her strong opinion voice. So I've just asked her some questions lately, and for whatever reason, I don't know, this just kind of came to me. But even like something as simple as I'm combing her hair this morning, and she's screaming, "You're hurting me! You're hurting!" And I'm like, I'm barely touching her. I'm like, or if I want to do her math homework, she's throwing a fit, or she doesn't want to do it, or she wants to go do something else. I'm like, I want her to know that I'm doing this because I care or I love her. And I mean, it's like our parents will like, I'm doing this because I love you, and it's like, no, you're not. Like, but they probably were. And so I've been asking her a question lately, and I've just been saying, "Hey, Ellie, do you think I'm trying to help or hurt you?" And I want her to make that distinguished opinion,
Mhm.
because now sometimes she'll just be like, "You're trying to hurt me." I'm like, "No, I'm not." But like knowing the heart of a person, like, is this person really out to get you? Are they really a ill-willed person, or are they trying to do their best job? Because yeah, this is a job that you're making a lot of high-level decisions with programming and events and people, staff, and you can be misunderstood, and I've been misunderstood. So I would say two things to any leaders or people that lead anything from their families to good communication is great. So three things: good communication with the people that you're serving with and supporting or working alongside or you're leading. A second is I've just learned the power of a sorry. Like
Mhm.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry that you feel that way. I'm sorry that if I've made you feel that way. It wasn't my intention. I truly felt like that was the best decision, or I didn't know it would come off that way. There's just something about being open-handed with someone who's coming to you with some feedback or a decision they felt like you didn't make it that was right, or a way that you made them feel. And there's just something about, listening really carefully at the gold that's in there, because there's got to be something there that they're probably right about. And so just doing my absolute best to say, I can see your perspective, and I'm sorry. And I'm going to do better. And I think we can do better together, but it starts with me. Simon Sinek says, when everything's going right, you have to give away all the credit. And when everything's going wrong, you have to take the blame. And so I've tried to adopt that principle a little bit in terms of my leadership here at the church and anywhere else. And then one more thing. I heard that some of the best advice I've heard in a long time. I posted it on my Instagram the other day. It's close to my heart a little bit because it was after the Cleveland Guardians, Cleveland Indians
Yeah.
game. The coach, his name's Stephen Vogt. I think that's how you say his last name, Vought. He was asked because he made a decision that ultimately cost them the game. I think he put in a pitcher and that pitcher blew it or something. And they said, "How do you process that? Like when you make a decision?" He goes, "It's a simple process. Here's what I tell myself. I ask myself, what's true? What's true is I made the best decision that I could in the moment with the information that I had, and I have to live with the results." So what I do, he said, a mentor told him at one point, learn the lesson, leave the event. So you can't change the past, you can't change, but you can learn from the event. So learn the lesson, leave the event, and what's true. And so I've been thinking so much about when you're attacked with this feedback that feels hurtful, or that you didn't make a right decision or whatever. I've been thinking about putting it somewhere in the room. What's true? And what's true is God loves me. I'm doing the best I can. Some decisions go well, some decisions don't. You made the wrong decision. You have to own up and take responsibility for it. And some decisions were maybe the right decisions, but it didn't work out. And so ask myself what's true. And then also be willing and humble enough to just say, yeah, you're right. I'm sorry. I made a mistake. And so that can be applied not just in the workplace, but your family, friendships.
It's one of those questions that might feel like the hardest thing to do in the moment, but then it makes everything else so much easier.
Yeah.
So if you can just get over the hump of asking in the first place. And the whole thing of asking questions, period, not to like turn this into a sermon, but Jesus asked more questions than he responded to, not because he didn't know the answer, but because exactly what you're doing with your daughters, letting her come to the conclusion, because you can be told something. I mean, how many times did your parents tell you something and you're like, yeah, that's great, and you
I
didn't
love you.
even
That's why I'm beating your bum right now.
Right. Exactly. It hurts me more than it hurts you. But
Yes, yeah,
yeah, you have to come to your own conclusions, and it's a kindness to guide and walk someone through it by asking important questions. I love that question of what is true because I think that'll save so much spiraling and so much obsessing over an issue when it's like, no, I did what I thought was right.
yeah.
And yeah, I think that's a really good piece of advice.
By the way, it's stuff I'm learning, like in real time. It's advice that I'm sharing on this podcast, yet literally walking through it, literally learning, like I said, like it's kind of a race to the self-awareness game. It's yeah, stuff we're all learning in real time. So
All benefiting from it. And
yeah,
it's sometimes it's not like what I have discovered being the youngest is if I pay attention enough, I'll escape a lot of pain if I just learn from watching and observing. And so
yeah,
that's kind of what I don't know, maybe this is like a subliminal goal of this podcast is like, hey, hear their process, learn from their, mistakes, successes, whatever, save you some headaches. But
absolutely.
I've asked you a lot of questions and I plan to bill you for this therapy session later. So just keep
Oh,
an eye.
cool.
But is there anything outside of these kind of like weighty questions? Do you have something in your life going on that you're like very excited about, professionally, personally, whatever?
No, I got all kinds of stuff I'm excited about. The Cavs are 12-0.
Okay, yeah.
Cleveland sports is alive and rolling.
Never thought we'd see the day, right?
Whew. Yeah, I mean, since LeBron left, it's been an uphill battle, but these guys have done a good job over the last couple of years. So I'm excited about that. There's a Roosters coming to Gahanna, which is right around the corner from the
Where?
church. Just
Where,
heard about that.
where are they
It's
gonna
where the
play?
old Charlie's is. Hmm.
Me and Elijah were just talking about what's going in there. We didn't know.
Yeah, a friend of mine just texted me earlier. I'm trying, and it was like progress being made. Like
Yeah.
yeah, dying or something's going up. So that's exciting. Uh, I
Uh,
love I love a few things. I love Cleveland sports. I love chicken wings. I love
Pickleball.
ice cream. I love pickleball. So that's exciting. I just found a court the other day that has lights. I haven't been able to play a lot because if I'm not at work, I'm like really giving a lot of my time to my family. But once I get the kids to bed is like my window
Mhm.
to like go do something. But if it's dark out, you can't play pickleball, obviously. So a friend of mine the other day, we found a new court or a new place that has a bunch of courts that has lights and they're on till like 11. So we're like, got the kids to bed and zoop, I'm off to pickleball. So yeah, pickleball, that's good. Still playing that. Chicken wings. The Cavs are doing well. They're 12-0, best record that they've ever had as a franchise. Browns are terrible, so let's not talk about them.
Um,
And the Cleveland Indians, man, they almost made it to the World Series this year. So we have a lot of stuff like from a obviously those are just some like little fun things
yeah.
that I'm excited about. But from a church perspective, where I work here at the church, we have a lot of things going on that are just great, that I could probably talk about for a long time, but just feel like God's really blessing us with a lot of different things. And people are coming to know Jesus. People are getting baptized. We're serving a really large special needs community, which is really cool to be a part of. We have some projects coming down the pike for expansion of our current our buildings and our infrastructure with parking and seating and so that's exciting. We're right in the middle of that. God's blessed our church with just great people and a very diverse group of people, which is not common. Like I grew up in churches all my life, but like in terms of socioeconomic background, racial, age diversity, I mean, it's a really cool thing. So these are things that excite me from a day to day. I love the team that I get to work with, a really great team of people and our staff. But I would say what I'm most excited about is the stage of life my family's in. Like it's just there are moments, Lauren, Flo, but I love my kids and Ellie just turned 9. We have a 6-year-old and then a 2-year-old, and it's just a fun season to be walking in. I feel grateful to have a great wife, have 3 great children. God blessed us with. So that's always exciting. We're always doing fun things. I love spending time with them. So
Everything's still so magical at that age too, which is super fun.
yeah.
I didn't know about the Roosters thing. I am actually very excited about that.
Um,
But normally I close it out with offering a game-changing thought. I think you offered about 20 game-changing thoughts, so that's good. But if you have like a final to tie a bow,
Well, let me share all the things that have been game changing or life changing that I've shared have really just been either other people sharing it or me experiencing something that has been life-changing to me. So let me kind of share another one of those. What year is it? 2024? Yeah, almost 2025. So about 10 years ago, I met Dustin Poole, who you know, and we had become friends. I was playing in the worship band or whatever. I was playing drums and I was singing, but he was asking me if I would take on a leadership role within the band, and it was being the what they called the audition coordinator for One Church Music. And so that was my first like volunteer role, other than playing drums and singing. And during the process of him asking me to do that and asking kind of like where my passions lie and gifts and talents and all that, he asked me a question that I still to this day feel like it's changed my life. And he said, "What can you do better than anybody else?" I was like, "What can I do better than anybody else?" And my first instinct was nothing. Not like there's nothing I can do that's better than anyone. I'm not LeBron James. Like I don't know. And so I sat with that question for a little bit, and even like in the car as we were sitting there, I'll never forget. I thought, like I don't know if I'm better than anyone else at this, but something that I've noticed a pattern for me in any environment that I'm in, whether it's a restaurant or it's vacation or it's the physical therapy office or it's the church, is I truly like to make people feel welcome and seen and noticed and help them feel involved and a part of something.
Mm.
And again, I don't think I'm the greatest at it, and there's people better than me than that, but that's truly something. You know, I would be in physical therapy in the physical therapy gym. I wouldn't consider myself the best therapist with the best strategies and the best treatment protocols and like all of the, greatest things. And there's people that were way smarter than me. But I could guarantee you, if there was a new patient, Mrs. Smith came into the gym in her wheelchair, and she had just gotten placed in that skilled nursing facility, and she broke her hip or whatever, and now all of a sudden Mrs. Smith is being told when to eat, when to go to therapy, when to go to bed, when to wake up, when to go take a shower. Her whole life has changed. She used to be independent, and now she's so I just, in that setting, man, I was going to make sure those people felt involved and welcome and that, like, hey, we're here to get you better. And like back to my question earlier, you think we're here because sometimes they thought we were going to hurt them as physical therapists,
Mm.
but we're here to help you. And so I just feel like in any environment of my life, I've just really like I've enjoyed to just help people feel welcome. Like and my mind will think about people quite a bit. I'm like, hey, has anyone checked in on that person? Are they okay? I feel like God just brings people to my mind, and I'll every once in a while shoot them a text or a voice note. Hey, it's been a while. How you doing? Checking in. My advice or my life changing, I guess, would be question that I would ask the listener of this podcast is, what can you do better than anyone else? Think about it, pray about it, and there's a gift in everybody. I believe that
Mhm.
they're maybe not going to be better than everybody, but they're good at it, and God's uniquely wired them to do it. And to me, now what I feel like is I have a purpose. I'm not going to be the best executive pastor. I'm not going to have the greatest business acumen as other people in some of the things that I do. I don't know my Bible as well as probably other executive pastors. But what I'm going to do and I'm going to work hard at is helping people feel welcome, seen, included, involved. And then if I don't have this job tomorrow or from 2 years from now, the next thing I do or the next job I have, I still want to do that. So if it's back to physical therapy, I want to help those people feel welcome, seen, included, well, and loved. Or if I'm doing something totally different, like I want to do that same thing. So any environment I'm in, it feels like it's given me like really like kind of what God put me on this earth for. So huge gratitude to Dustin Poole for asking me that question. I would ask anybody that question. What can you do better than anybody else? What has God gifted you with that you can share with the world and just be doing all the time, no matter what environment you're in?
Yeah, I like that thought too, because I see two different things with that. I see you're not attaching yourself to a role. So you don't live and die on your job title. You live and die on your value system and who you are, regardless of season or setting, which is, I think, the biggest thing for any mentality. Like, so that way, if you're like making mistakes or doing things really well, you're not gonna have those highs and lows because you'll have a constant, which is awesome. And then also, it is hard to answer that question because the reality of like, even if you're not trying to be humble, you're just like, yeah, to say I'm the best at something feels
I know.
it feels wrong, but I
Yeah.
think I understand the spirit behind the question because it's like everyone has a gift. Like you
Mhm.
said, everyone's good at something, but when you have something that not only you're gifted at, but you have a passion for, you can take it way farther. And this is kind of a weird quote, but I like it. It's you'll get more out of a lover than a servant. So a servant has gifts. Servants will say yes, servants will do whatever. But if you have someone's heart and if you have someone's passion, they'll die for you. They'll go to the end for it in a healthy way, you know? So I think that's such like a good spirited question to ask. Because even as you said that, I'm like, dang, what do I do better than
Yeah,
Joe?
well, no, I'm curious. I was gonna ask, what seriously, what do you think
I'm
you do
really good at
in business?
basketball. So
Yeah,
I'm not.
I
I
mean,
I did put the junior and junior varsity though, growing up. That was something I did. But I was a junior on JV. No,
I
I
mean, the Cavs are doing well, but they might need a spot. I mean, they might need somebody on the roster if you're that good.
if yeah, if I'm not busy, I'll probably yeah, I would do that.
Yeah, yeah,
No, what I do, I think so when you said inclusion, I think Strengths Finder test.
yeah. Hmm.
So the five, mine is connectiveness, inclusion, communication, like all of those things. And I think there's been so many moments in my life where I have moved a ton, a ton. So I always felt like an outsider. So it's almost the be who you want to see, like be the change you want to see in the world kind of concept.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that was similar to your experience or you just saw inclusive being inclusion like done in a healthy way. So like if I see an outsider, I'm similar in that regard. I think I like to have people included. I think I felt misunderstood in a lot of places just because I'm like usually new when I go into these environments. So making sure someone feels understood and heard is huge.
Totally. I made a realization a couple years ago that I actually enjoy meeting new people more than I enjoy talking to current people I know. I don't know why. I just like meeting new people and like, hey, what's your background and where are you from? And finding common ground. It's just really fun for me. But some people are like, new people? Absolutely not. Like get me out of here and they're introverted. I'm just the opposite, so I enjoy it.
For how often you're around people to still have energy, that means you're a true extrovert.
For the most part, it's energizing to me, and I just like to get to know people. So
Yeah, it sounds like you're in the right spot. It's appreciated. Like I said earlier too, like it's a difference maker. Church as it's getting bigger and bigger to see a familiar face and to see someone who knows you and
mm,
not only just says hi, there's like a question behind it or like a how's it
mm.
going? Who actually knows? Yeah, it keeps people invested. So it's good.
That's one of the hardest parts about the church growing is used to know everybody. I don't now.
Yeah.
And even the people that I've known for years, it's like you can't, my mind can only know, track with, hang out with, spend time with, reach out to like so many people. And that's been one of the hardest things for me to kind of deal with that like I can't know everybody always and always be, with them and talking with them. And
Mhm.
so I've just trusted, like, I don't need to be that.
Mhm.
It's not what God asked me to do. Other people can, we have great people in our church that can do the same stuff and probably better than I can. So, but that has been a daunting thing as the church has grown to feel a sense of responsibility and weight for some of the original people that I met at the church or some of the original people I hung out with at the church or whatever, to always be checking in and feeling the weight of the pressure, like, oh shoot, if I didn't check in, are they having a good experience? And it's such a selfish way of thinking. Like, why would it have anything to do with me?
Yeah.
And so I've just learned to try to set myself some boundaries in that regard and be more humble about it, to be honest with you.
Yeah. It's hard. Like you said, it's like a lot to ask for one individual. And I realized as I was saying all this, I'm setting a super high bar for you. So everyone coming into the church now is gonna be like, oh, this guy will always say hi to me. But no, I think that's what's important. Like as the church grows, it is almost like the discipleship factor of like, so for every you that's somewhere, there's people there like you.
Hmm.
So you set a good example and you set it early. And so people have seen it for a long time. And so now that that's kind of the standard that's set, people will mimic that in a good way. Like they'll do their own version of it, but they'll also see, because with a leader, what they do is they cast the vision. And so the people can see the vision and follow the vision, and it looks different for everybody. But if hopefully this takes off some pressure of you because you've already cast the vision, you are an example of a way to do it and a way to do it well. So anybody who is trained under you or witnesses what you do, that's exactly what a disciple is, witnessing and creating their own version of it, basically. So hopefully that takes some pressure off, knowing like you're not the only one in there, doing it. And people have a heart to do and see things similar to you, which is good.
That is true. Yeah, absolutely. What else? What are there,
Because
any
usually
like hot seat questions?
hot seat questions, do you want like a hot take on something?
I mean, you don't have to do that. I was just,
I'm trying to think of like, because it's such like a tough climate right now. And I think, yeah, people. or maybe they're a little overstimulated with a lot of hard critical thinking, decision making because like of what, the election and all this stuff. So I don't want to stress people out. And I feel like all the things that you've mentioned have been keys for people to process what's going on for
Yeah.
the good or the bad, wherever they fall, or maybe they're in the middle. I think a lot of people are like, did I make a good choice? Did I make a bad choice? Whatever. And this is like, you made the choice the best you could with what knowledge you had in the moment. Kind of, I think this will be helpful and healthy for people to process the tough stuff. And like you said, the small stuff. So,
I mean, I feel like our culture has come a long way. Saw a lot on Instagram. Certainly people have their opinions about what happened or what didn't happen. But I feel like there's enough in there to say, hey, this isn't worth losing our friends over.
yeah.
It goes back to what I said earlier about like just believing that there's good in people. If someone disagrees with me on an issue or whatever, or they see it a little bit differently based on their context and how they were brought up and what they were their life experience or what they believe about something or someone or whatever, it's like they're allowed to feel that, man. I mean, we can take any issue and any topic, and I mean LeBron James and Michael Jordan. We disagree, right? Don't you think Michael Jordan's the best?
I do. Yeah. But
You can take it's crazy what people can disagree on. So we shouldn't be surprised that people disagree on some of the bigger stuff, but I don't think we should make it so big that we can't still be in relationship and just respect and love each other and believe that there's good in people and that there's some nuanced difference in how we see the world. Yeah, we get the right to vote, but it's not worth looking 3 years from now. And was it worth having an argument around? Probably not.
I like to always think back to like every human has the same core needs and everyone is just trying to figure out how to get those needs met. And so
Mhm.
knowing that even if someone sees completely differently than me and I completely disagree with their process or the end result, like I can still see human to human, like they have the same need as me of like what is it, Maslow's hierarchy of need. They need a safe place to sleep. They need food, they need water, they need community, they need to know that they're going in a healthy direction. So I think if I can see that at that level and our process is different, as long as it's reciprocated, sometimes even that isn't reciprocated, even when you meet someone at that level of like, we both want the same thing, really. Yeah, I just try to keep myself there because it is so easy, especially on social media. It's so easy to take the bait, and I have taken the bait before and got
Me
so
too.
I go,
Yeah.
I get way out of my depth so easily. I don't know enough about any of that stuff, so, but I do the best I can.
Yeah, it's kind of funny actually, to be honest, like on social media, like so the day after the election, and it's funny because like you don't know really where everyone sort of stands, if you will, in terms of like their political lean
Hmm.
or how conservative or how liberal or who they voted for, like, and then once like the results come out, and it's like, dang, like I was actually blown away by people who were happy with the results of the at least the presidential election.
Yeah.
I was blown away with the people that were met. I was like, oh, I didn't even know those people, this group of people felt that way. And I didn't know. And I was actually encouraged. I'm like, I should be encouraged that I have that many people that see the world differently. And I'm not just surrounding myself with. So when I saw those differences of opinions in the posts and the people that are sharing all the things, and it was like really split on my own social media and the people that I follow and surround myself with, I was like, and which goes back to what I said earlier about the church and how a lot of my friends are at the church. And so it's a testament to what God's been able to do here with the diversity of people and thought. I'm like, dang, I should be encouraged that like not everyone thinks the same, that my challenges or my thoughts are challenged a bit on these things. And so
It's almost like we probably should have more conversations if we realized like how
yeah,
different it is. And but you're right, it's
yeah,
so good to have like both. I have the same. The exact same. It was like a split down the middle of half and half. And they were all arguing with each other. And I'm just sitting there like, okay, can't we just all get along? But
yeah.
yeah, it is healthy to have both perspectives because I have blind spots. I don't know everything, and the other side doesn't know everything of whatever the side is. So it's
There's lyrics of my favorite band who you probably know. I know Elijah's a big fan of Need to Breathe.
oh, of course.
But I can't remember what the song is called, but I have this on my Instagram bio. It says "Be more heart, less attack,"
Mhm.
and I just feel like, man, that's we could all learn from those lyrics, and so I try to do that every day.
Owen Bear, they really know what they're talking about.
Owen Bear,
But yeah, I think that's a good place to land it. Be
great.
more heart, less attack.
Be more heart, less
Okay.
attack.
Oh, and I said sage wisdom, and it might have come off sarcastic at the beginning, but it was sage wisdom.
If we ever do another one, be more concise and I'll answer faster.
No, it was great. It was great. But thanks for being on, Ryan. I'll talk to you later.
Okay, thank you.